You ever stop and wonder why some people seem to avoid you? Okay, maybe that sounds a bit harsh, but let's face it, we all have habits that secretly make others cringe the moment we walk into the room. Trust me, I've been there too. Today, let's dive into some of those habits, the ones that make people look at you sideways, judge you, or even start to drift away. Don't worry though, I'm not here to call you out without owning up to my own flaws. In fact, I've been guilty of most of these myself. So buckle up, this is going to be honest, maybe a little uncomfortable but also pretty enlightening. Let's start with gossiping. Yeah, you know the drill. A little workplace tea here, a little chatter about someone's drama there. It seems harmless, even fun. Who doesn't love being in the know, right? But here's the harsh truth. Every time you dish out the dirt, you're not just entertaining people, you're making them wonder what you say about them when they're not around. Gossip has a way of creating an invisible barrier of distrust. People might laugh along, nod, even add to the conversation, but deep down, they're clocking you as someone who can't be trusted. I used to think gossip was a bonding tool, like if I shared the latest juicy detail, people would find me relatable and fun. And for a while, it felt like that was true. But then, I started noticing something. People kept their distance. Not physically, but emotionally. They'd talk to me, sure, but only about shallow stuff, weather, work, whatever. No one wanted to go deeper because they didn't trust me not to air their secrets. That realization stung, but it was also a wake-up call. Gossiping didn't just harm my relationships, it held a mirror to my own insecurities. The more I focused on other people's messes, the more I avoided dealing with my own. Here's the thing about gossip. It's a cheap thrill. It doesn't build trust. It erodes it. And when you're caught in that cycle, it's not just your relationships that suffer. It messes with your mindset. Instead of lifting people up, you're dragging them and yourself down. Breaking that habit is hard, but it's worth it. Now, whenever someone tries to loop me into some juicy drama, I just shut it down. A simple, "I'm good," works wonders. It might seem awkward at first, but you'll notice something amazing. People start respecting you. They see you as someone who values integrity over cheap talk, and that's powerful. Now let's shift gears to another sneaky habit, being passive-aggressive. The art of saying one thing while meaning the complete opposite. You know what I mean. The classic, "I'm fine," delivered with a tone that screams anything but. Or those sly little comments meant to guilt-trip someone into understanding how you feel without you having to actually say it. I used to think passive aggression was a brilliant strategy. Why have a messy confrontation when you can just drop hints and let people figure it out? Turns out, it's not so brilliant after all. The truth is, passive aggression is exhausting for you and everyone around you. It's like throwing emotional darts and hoping they hit the target, but most of the time they don't. People aren't mind readers, and even if they are, they're probably tired of trying to decode your cryptic behavior. I learned this the hard way. I used to be the queen of sending passive-aggressive texts. Someone would flake on plans, and instead of saying, "Hey, that bummed me out," I'd send a snarky, "Must be nice to be so busy." You know what happened? People stopped responding, not just to the texts, but to me. No one wants to play emotional dodgeball every time they talk to you. Eventually, someone called me out. They said, "If you can't just tell me what's wrong, I can't fix it." It was like a punch to the gut, but they were right. Being passive-aggressive wasn't clever. It was cowardly. It was a way to avoid vulnerability, to sidestep the discomfort of honest communication. But here's the thing. When you avoid those tough conversations, you're also avoiding growth. It wasn't until I started saying, "Hey, that hurt," or "I'm upset because," that my relationships started improving. Was it scary? Absolutely. But it was also liberating. People appreciated the honesty. and I respected myself more for being brave enough to say what I meant. And that brings us to another big one, refusing to take responsibility. Oh, this one's a classic. We've all done it. Missed a deadline, blame the slow Wi-Fi, failed a test. That teacher must hate me. It feels so good to deflect, doesn't it? Like you're off the hook. But here's the catch. Every time you dodge responsibility, you're sending a clear message to the world and yourself that you can't handle your own life. Harsh, I know, but true. I used to be a master of excuses. Back in school, I'd forget assignments and always have some elaborate story ready. Printer broke, my dog ate it, you name it. For a while, it worked. But then one of my teachers said something that stuck with me. Every time you make an excuse, you rob yourself of a chance to grow. That hit me like a ton of bricks. Excuses felt safe, but they were keeping me stuck. Owning up to my mistakes wasn't easy, but it was empowering. The first time I admitted, I messed up, and here's how I'll fix it. Something incredible happened. People respected me more. They saw me as accountable, someone who could learn and improve, rather than someone constantly passing the buck. Taking responsibility isn't just about earning respect. It's about reclaiming your power. When you own your actions, you realize you have the ability to change, to grow, to get better. It's not always fun, and it definitely doesn't feel good in the moment, but it's worth it. People notice, and more importantly, you notice. You start to trust yourself more, and that's a game changer. Stay tuned. I've got more for you. Let's keep peeling back the layers of these habits and how they shape the way people see us and how we see ourselves. Now, let's talk about something that might hit close to home. Hygiene. Yep, the basic stuff. It's the kind of topic no one really wants to bring up, but probably should. We all assume it's a given, but sometimes it's not as obvious as we think. And let's be real. Nothing screams, "I don't care," like skipping the basics. It's not just about how you look or smell. It's about how you present yourself to the world. I'll own up to it. When I was younger, I went through a phase where I didn't think deodorant was necessary. I figured, if I don't feel sweaty, then I'm fine. Spoiler alert, I wasn't fine. It wasn't until someone awkwardly suggested a new body spray that I realized I'd been unintentionally torturing everyone around me. Mortified doesn't even begin to cover it. That was the day I learned the hard way how much hygiene matters, not just for others, but for yourself. Here's the thing. Neglecting hygiene isn't just about odors or appearances. It sends a message, whether you realize it or not. When you don't take care of yourself, people start to wonder what else you're neglecting. Are you the type of person who cuts corners in other areas of life? Can you be trusted with bigger responsibilities if you can't even handle the basics? It might sound harsh, but it's how people think. And honestly, it's not just about them, it's about you. I've noticed that when I'm feeling down or overwhelmed, my hygiene is often the first thing to go. Skipping a shower, throwing on yesterday's clothes, it feels like no big deal in the moment, but it's a slippery slope. The less I care for myself physically, the worse I feel mentally. It's a cycle that feeds on itself. One skipped shower turns into two, and before I know it, I'm stuck in a rut, feeling gross and unmotivated. What really changed my perspective was a conversation with a friend who gently asked, "Hey, are you doing okay?" At first I was confused, but then it hit me. They noticed. They noticed that I wasn't taking care of myself, and that realization was a wake-up call. Hygiene isn't just about looking good for others. It's about showing yourself that you matter. It's about saying, "I'm worth the effort." And let me tell you, there's something magical about stepping out of a hot shower, clean and refreshed. It's like hitting a mental reset button. If you're struggling, start small. Brush your teeth, wash your face, put on clean clothes. These little acts can make a huge difference in how you feel about yourself and how others perceive you. And if you're ever tempted to skip it because no one will notice, trust me, they will. Taking care of yourself is the easiest way to show the world you're showing up for life, ready and capable. Speaking of showing up, let's tackle another habit, chronic lateness. You know the drill. You're supposed to be somewhere at 6, but at 6:05 you're still at home telling yourself, they won't mind if I'm a few minutes late. Except it's never just a few minutes, is it? It's 10, 20, sometimes more. And sure, you might think it's no big deal, but here's the harsh truth. When you're consistently late, you're telling people their time doesn't matter. I used to be that person. I thought being late was no big deal, just part of my personality. Fashionably late, right? Wrong. One day, my best friend called me out, and her words hit me like a ton of bricks. She said, "When you're late, it feels like you don't care about me or my time." Ouch. I'd never thought of it that way, but she was right. My lateness wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a sign of disrespect. Being late might seem harmless on the surface, but it chips away at trust. If you're late to a meeting, people start wondering if you're reliable. If you're late to a date, they might question if you're even interested. And let's not forget the ripple effect. Your lateness doesn't just affect you. It throws off everyone else's plans too. What I didn't realize was that my chronic lateness wasn't just poor time management, it was deeper than that. Sometimes it was a way of avoiding situations I didn't want to face. Other times it was me being overly optimistic about how much I could cram into a day. Whatever the reason, it wasn't a good look. Once I acknowledged that, I started making changes. I set alarms, planned my day better, and made it a point to arrive early. At first it felt unnatural, but soon I noticed the difference. People appreciated the effort, and I felt more in control of my time and my life. Here's the thing. Punctuality isn't just about being on time. It's about showing respect for others and for yourself. It's about saying, I value you, your time, and this moment. And trust me, when you start showing up on time, people notice. They see you as reliable, trustworthy, someone who's got it together. It's a simple habit, but it makes a world of difference. Now let's flip the script to something equally important. Complaining. We all do it. Bad traffic, annoying co-workers, cold coffee. It's easy to find things to gripe about. And honestly, complaining can feel good in the moment. It's a release, a way to vent frustration. But when it becomes a habit, it's a different story. I went through a phase where I complained about everything. It didn't matter if it was big or small. I always had something negative to say. At first it felt harmless, but then a friend said something that stopped me in my tracks. "You know, you complain more than anyone I know." Oof, that stung. I hadn't realized how much negativity I was putting out into the world. And here's the kicker. The more I complained, the more negative I felt. It was like I was training my brain to only see the bad. Constant complaining doesn't just drag you down, it drags everyone else down too. People start to avoid you because they don't want to be sucked into your storm of negativity. And honestly, who can blame them? When you're always focusing on what's wrong, you're missing out on what's right. What changed for me was shifting my perspective. Instead of complaining about everything, I started asking myself, what can I do about this? If the answer was nothing, I let it go. If there was a solution, I took action. And you know what? It worked. I felt lighter, more positive, and people actually enjoyed being around me again. Funny how that works, huh? Stay with me. There's still more to uncover about these habits and the power of making small but impactful changes in our lives. Now, let's dig into a sneaky habit that might feel harmless but carries a hefty toll. Playing the victim. You know the vibe. Everything bad happens to you, and it's always someone else's fault. Missed deadlines. The universe is out to get you. Relationship issues. Obviously, everyone else is to blame. It's an easy mindset to slip into, and I'll admit, I've been guilty of it too. But here's the brutal truth. Playing the victim might get you sympathy for a while, but it's also the fastest way to lose respect. I remember a time when I leaned into the victim mentality hard. Every setback, every mistake, it was always someone or something else that caused it. I thought I was just venting, but in reality, I was giving away my power. One day, a friend bluntly asked, "Have you ever thought about what you're contributing to these situations?" At first, I was defensive. Me? Contributing? No way. But the question stuck with me, and I started to see the pattern. By blaming everything around me, I was avoiding the uncomfortable truth. I wasn't taking responsibility for my choices. Here's the thing. Life is unfair sometimes. Bad things happen, often for reasons beyond our control. But when you constantly play the victim, you trap yourself in a cycle of helplessness. You convince yourself that you're powerless, and that mindset can be crippling. It stops you from looking for solutions, from growing, and from moving forward. Breaking out of the victim mentality was tough. I had to start asking myself hard questions. What role did I play in this? What can I do differently next time? It wasn't fun, but it was transformative. Instead of waiting for things to change, I started making changes. And here's the wild part. When you take responsibility, people notice. They see you as strong, resilient, and capable. It's a mindset shift that's not just empowering, it's contagious. Speaking of contagious, let's address another habit that spreads like wildfire: negativity. We all have those moments when everything feels wrong, and it's tempting to spiral. But living in a constant state of negativity, that's a fast track to alienating everyone around you. People gravitate toward positivity, and if all you're bringing to the table is gloom and doom, they'll eventually stop showing up. I've been there too. There was a period in my life when it felt like nothing was going right. And instead of focusing on solutions or silver linings, I let the negativity consume me. I'd walk into a room and immediately start complaining about the weather, my workload, even the smallest inconveniences. At first, people sympathized, but over time, I noticed something. They started avoiding me. Conversations became shorter, invitations dried up. It wasn't until someone gently pointed it out that I realized my negativity wasn't just affecting me, it was dragging everyone else down too. What turned things around was gratitude. It sounds cliché, but hear me out. When I started focusing on what was going right, no matter how small, it changed everything. Suddenly, the little annoyances didn't seem so big, and more importantly, people started enjoying my company again. Gratitude doesn't just make you feel better, it makes you better to be around. Now, let's talk about a habit that's a little harder to pinpoint, but just as damaging: being overly self-centered. Look, we all have moments where we focus on ourselves, and that's okay. But when everything becomes about you, your problems, your achievements, your feelings, it can push people away faster than you realize. I used to think that constantly talking about myself was just a way to share my life with others. But what I didn't realize was that I wasn't leaving room for them to share theirs. Conversations weren't conversations, they were monologues. And while people were polite at first, it became clear that I wasn't really connecting with them. I was so focused on being seen and heard that I forgot to see and hear others. The wake-up call came during a group dinner. I was rambling on about my day, barely noticing that everyone else had gone quiet. Then someone said, "You know, we all have stuff going on too." It was like a slap in the face, but I needed it. I realized I wasn't just being self-centered, I was being dismissive. I wasn't valuing the people around me. Shifting that habit wasn't easy. It meant being intentional about listening, asking questions, and genuinely caring about the answers. And you know what? It changed everything. My relationships became deeper and more meaningful. People opened up to me because they felt seen and valued. It was a reminder that connection isn't just about sharing, it's about receiving too. Here's a final thought. The habits we carry don't just shape how others see us, they shape how we see ourselves. When we break free from negativity, victimhood, and self-centeredness, we're not just improving our relationships, we're transforming our own lives. It's not about being perfect, it's about being aware. Small changes add up, and over time, they create a version of you that you're proud to be. Stay with me. We're not done yet. There's still so much to uncover about the way our habits shape our lives. Let's dive into a habit that's so subtle you might not even realize you're doing it, constantly seeking validation. You know what I mean, checking if people liked your post, fishing for compliments, or looking to others to reassure you that you're on the right track. It's a craving we all feel sometimes, but when it becomes a constant need, it starts to wear thin, not just on you, but on the people around you. I used to be the type to ask, "Do you think I'm doing okay?" over and over. At first, people were supportive. They'd reassure me, tell me I was on the right path. But eventually I noticed their responses got shorter, more mechanical. The truth was, my need for validation wasn't just annoying, it was exhausting for them. I was putting the weight of my self-worth on their shoulders, and that's not fair to anyone. What I learned was this: validation from others is a temporary fix. It feels good in the moment, but it doesn't last. The real game changer is learning to validate yourself. It's about recognizing your own worth without needing someone else to confirm it. At first, it feels strange, even uncomfortable. But over time, you start to trust yourself more. You stop chasing approval and start building confidence from within. And guess what? People are drawn to that kind of self-assuredness. It's magnetic. Now, let's shift to a habit that's even trickier to spot, but just as damaging: interrupting. This one's sneaky because it often comes from a place of enthusiasm. You're excited to share your thoughts, so you jump in before the other person finishes. Harmless, right? Not really. Over time, it sends a message that you value your words more than theirs. I used to interrupt all the time, thinking I was adding to the conversation. But then, during a group discussion, someone said, "Can I finish what I was saying?" It was a light-hearted comment, but it stung. I realized I wasn't listening to understand. I was listening to respond. I wasn't truly engaged. I was just waiting for my turn to talk. Breaking that habit took practice. I had to consciously tell myself to pause, to let the other person finish. It was uncomfortable at first, but the payoff was huge. Conversations became richer, more meaningful. People felt heard, and I learned things I never would have if I'd kept interrupting. Listening isn't just polite, it's a superpower. It shows respect, builds trust, and deepens connections. Another habit worth unpacking is being overly defensive. This one hits hard because it's often tied to our deepest insecurities. Someone gives you constructive feedback, and instead of taking it in stride, you snap back with excuses or justification. I get it. It's natural to want to protect yourself, but defensiveness can make you seem unapproachable, even combative. I remember a time when a coworker gave me feedback on a project. My immediate response was, "Well, I only did it that way because..." Instead of thanking them or considering their perspective, I got defensive. Later, I realized my reaction wasn't about their feedback. It was about my fear of failure. I wasn't defending the work. I was defending my ego. The turning point came when I decided to lean into feedback instead of fighting it. I started saying, "Thanks for pointing that out," even when it stung. At first it felt like swallowing a bitter pill, but it got easier. And here's the surprising part. When you stop being defensive, people respect you more. They see you as someone who's open to growth, not stuck in their ways. Let's move on to a habit that's incredibly common but rarely talked about: over-apologizing. You know the type. Apologizing for things that aren't your fault, for things you can't control, or even for just existing in someone's space. It might seem harmless, even polite, but over time, it chips away at your confidence and makes others see you as less capable. I used to apologize for everything. If someone bumped into me, I'd say sorry. If I had an opinion in a meeting, I'd preface it with, "Sorry, but..." One day, a friend stopped me mid-apology and said, "Why are you apologizing? You didn't do anything wrong." That moment stuck with me. I realized my constant apologies weren't making me polite. They were making me seem unsure of myself. Since then, I've made a conscious effort to only apologize when it's truly warranted. Instead of saying, "Sorry for bothering you," I'll say, "Thanks for your time." It's a small shift, but it makes a big difference. You come across as confident, respectful, and self-assured. And let's be honest, who doesn't want to be seen that way? Now let's tackle a big one: comparing yourself to others. This habit is a killer. It sneaks into your mind and makes you feel like you're not enough. You see someone else's success, and instead of being happy for them, you feel inadequate. I've been there, scrolling through social media, seeing people achieve things I hadn't and thinking, why can't that be me? The problem with comparison is that it's never fair. You're comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. What changed for me was realizing that their success doesn't diminish mine. There's enough room for everyone to shine. Instead of comparing, I started using others' achievements as inspiration. If they can do it, why can't I? That mindset shift was liberating. It turned envy into motivation and insecurity into confidence. Here's the truth. Breaking these habits isn't easy. It takes awareness, effort, and a willingness to change, but the rewards are worth it. When you stop seeking validation, interrupting, or comparing yourself to others, you create space for better connections, deeper relationships, and a stronger sense of self. And isn't that what we all want at the end of the day? Stay with me. There's still more to explore as we uncover the habits that hold us back and the ones that push us forward. Let's wrap this up by addressing one final habit: neglecting gratitude. It's so easy to focus on what's missing in our lives, the things we don't have, the goals we haven't reached, the moments that didn't go our way. But when we forget to appreciate what's already here, we rob ourselves of joy and push others away. I learned this lesson the hard way. There was a period in my life when nothing felt good enough. No matter what I achieved or experienced, I was constantly looking for the next thing, the bigger prize, the real success. And while I was busy chasing more, I failed to appreciate the people, opportunities, and moments that were already in front of me. The wake-up call came during a quiet conversation with a friend. They said, "You have so much to be thankful for, but you don't seem to see it." That hit me deep. Gratitude isn't just about saying thank you to others. It's about shifting your perspective. When you start focusing on what you have, instead of what you lack, everything changes. You begin to see the beauty in the little things: a kind gesture, a shared laugh, even just waking up to a new day. And the best part, gratitude is contagious. When you express it, people feel it, and they want to be around you. It's a simple habit with a profound impact. So here's the takeaway. Habits shape your life, your relationships, and how the world sees you. Whether it's breaking free from gossip, learning to take responsibility, or embracing gratitude, every small change adds up. It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. Start small, stay consistent, and watch as these shifts ripple out, transforming not just how others perceive you, but how you perceive yourself. Life's too short to be stuck in patterns that hold you back. Choose better, and you'll create a version of yourself you're proud of, one day at a time.